it's Allison. I wanted to give you guys a quick breakdown on some tips for getting into the banner and getting some of your cuts and sandwiching made, okay? Line up the folded edge as opposed to the selvage, okay? We don't want that. You don't want to line up to that, okay? You want to go ahead and line up to the fold. And if there's a pattern, I also use that as a double check. So right now, we do have a pattern here with the stars. I want to make sure that that's nicely lined up as well, which it all looks really nice. Okay, press down, cutting off the seam. So that's how you cut off the edge and line it all up nice. Now for, this is for the front face of our banner. So for the front face, we need a strip that is 10 inches wide, and from there we're going to cut our pieces. So this guy isn't big enough. Don't use the self-healing mat to do your measurements because that can be off. So what I'm going to do a combination of things. Here's a tucker trimmer. I'm a lefty, so I put the full circle, since I'm doing a full 10 inches, it's not a half inch, it's a 10 inch in the left corner. If you're a righty, you'd put it in the right corner. And I'm going to, actually I'm flipping it around as I say that just because I have the fabric upside down. So I'm going to line it up really nicely again with the fold edge with the top, that's 10 inches, okay? And then I'm going to go ahead and cut here. I don't usually cut at this awkward angle, but because the camera is set up there, I am. And I have Invisigrip on the back of this tucker trimmer, which does really help keep it in place. It's not perfect, but it does really do a good job of helping. I'm gonna move over to the side. It'll make cutting a little easier. Okay. And I lined up again so that we have the 10 inch line here. Okay. We're not worried about the 8 inches yet. Good. Almost there. This is a wide fabric. This is, I think it's 55 inch is what I said. So this is a little bit wider. It's a heavy canvas duck cloth. There we go. Okay, so there is our strip. First, I'm going to cut off this icky selvage. So I want to line up the edge all nice. Looks good. Get my rotary cutter, keeping fingers away from the edges, of course. Okay, and now, again, I'm a lefty, so the whole circle is in my top left. I need 8 inches. We already have the 10 inches, so the 10 is here. That goes on the bottom. The 8, I'm going to line up here, and by doing that, I have a perfect rectangle to the measurements that I need. Okay. Let's talk about the stencils real quick. Okay, this is the PDF. Okay, I already mirrored them for you because we're going to trace them on the back side, so you need to have them flipped and reversed. So what you will do, again, using the straight edges that you have, you can use a smaller one if you want. Okay, you will line up, not with fabric underneath obviously, line up the edges and rotary cut it. Use a different cutter for paper versus fabric because the paper will dull the blade and then it'll be dull for the fabric. So keep your cutting instruments separate. Yeah, that means you have to double up, but. Okay, so we do all the edges. In the letters, do use either the rotary cutter, okay, for the bigger. You obviously aren't gonna be able to get up close. So you just go to, I don't know, about 1/4 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch away from any corners. And then what you can do is either take out little scissors, okay, and this is one that I did yesterday. You can take out little scissors and kind of trim and go around the corners. I find scissors easier for the corners and get right up, I find scissors easier for the curves, and you can trim right up to the corners, or you can also use a craft knife, again, not with fabric underneath, a craft knife and a straight edge, and you would just line it up, and then with the edge, cut it off. What I'm doing there is actually trimming off a little bit. That could have used a little shaving. There we go. Go as close to the edge as you'd like. You're on the back side, the wrong side of the fabric. And what you're going to do is simply trace out. Easy peasy here, guys. And then go ahead and trim and mark out the inside. Now notice I'm doing this for the hand cutting people. I am marking this before the heat and bond goes on. If you want to cut the banner, you can, the outside. Don't cut the inside yet though, okay? Because that is our next step. Let's pick up from the point we have the heat and bond. What we have right now is our 8x10 rectangle and our 5 3/4 by 5 3/4 sheet of heat and bond. I'm going to use an easy press for this. An iron works just as well. In fact, often I use the iron just because it's always out and it's really easy. First things first, make sure you know which is the top, okay? It's backwards because of the way we're filming, but as you can see, the flats of the stars are right here. So you want to make sure you see the top. And then you want to reference the banner layering guide, which is in your tutorial, to show where the heat and bond goes. So from the top of the 8x10 rectangle, it's 1.5 inches down by 1 1/4 inches over. This is one of those times, I keep saying it in every tutorial I write, guys, and in every blog post, buying one of these clear, they're called see-through rulers. There's a couple different companies that make them. They're the same. These are amazing for lining up. I started using them years ago for doing stationery, and now I use them all the time for everything. So what I'm going to do is come down 1.5 inches from the top so I can see it. I line up the left edge nice and easy with a clear marker, measurement marker, and then I'm going to go 1 1/4 over. This is square, so it doesn't matter which side. The paper backing is facing up, and again, we're on the wrong side of the fabric. If you hand drew the stencil, you'd see the letter through there. And I'm going 1 1/4, and I'm just lining it up because I have it all lined up 1.5 down from the top, and now I'm measuring 1 1/4 over, and right there, it's that easy. Lay it out flat and press. Now normally when you use the easy press, you need to preheat the fabric. Heat and bond literally takes a couple seconds. I'm not even doing the timer because it just takes a few moments. So just keep it on there for a couple minutes, not a couple seconds. Take it off, just check it, that looks good. Okay, put the easy press back, and we're going to let this cool for a few minutes. Real quick, I use this is a wool super thick ironing pad. I also have an ironing board out, but for the easy press I use that, and every once in a while I use it for my ironing, my regular iron as well. Okay, now we're going to get out the Cricut mat. At this point, if you were hand cutting, you can simply take it off, okay? This won't be sticky at all. You need to heat this to get it to stick again. So you need to take this off, and you would see your letter through here and just start cutting, okay? You can cut the outside if you haven't already, and then cut the letter. Since we are doing this with Cricut in this example, you need to put it on your board. Put the right side of the fabric down, line it up. My left is a little less sticky, so I'm doing it over to the right. And I did edit on Design Space to have it line up that way, making sure the top is where the hole is. And then I take my roller and I make sure that it's all down nice and smooth. Okay. And we are good. So the key tips here are to A, make sure that you have the top lined up with the top of the machine, with the top of the mat, and then also that you have the good face down. If you pull up this project in Design Space, then you have to turn on the mirror for each of the letters. If you use the SVG files that I have set up separately, I already mirrored those. So I don't want you to get confused. Basically, just look at the R or the E or the C, a letter that's obvious when you see it backwards, to see whether it's mirrored or not, and make sure it is mirrored since we have the good side down. Okay, so we'll go ahead and we'll put this through the Cricut. Now, I already did one so that we'd have it ready to go. Use your little, I call this a spatula, I don't know what it's actually called. I like to use this to pull up the edges so that you don't accidentally pull any of the fibers away, any of the threads away. And look at, yes, hand cutting people. I know this is hard to watch because it's so easy the way it comes up. But, you know, the Cricut is an investment. I get it. If you do a lot of crafting and projects, it's definitely worth it. It's amazing. Okay, so here is the outside of my letter. I'm just going to set that aside. Then I'm going to pull up this, save this. This and all of the letters can be used to make a pillow that can be wall art. I'm going to put one into a quilt. I made one, actually I made two of them into America banners, a totally separate design, but where this was on top of burlap. So save those. Another thing very important to save, I call it the donut hole, the center of the A. Okay, so now we'll set that apart, aside. Take our mat back out, and we're going to get this lined up nice and quick. I still have the easy press on, face down, okay? Here is my square. This is 6 by 6 inches, the red stripe, and you can just barely, you might not be able to see this on camera, just barely see where the heat and bond is. We want to make sure that we cover that. And also something that I like to do, since this is such a contrasting stripe and you could tell so easily if it's crooked, I'm going to use my clear ruler, line the ruler up to make sure that it's nice and in line with the top, perpendicular, and then I'm going to make sure that the stripes are perpendicular to the top. And as it happens, it landed perfectly. I don't usually get that lucky, so that's pretty awesome. Oh, there's a thread there. Okay, now the heat and bond is covered by the perimeter of the fabric. Both pieces of fabric are face down. Now we're going to flip this over. See how nice that looks? It's kind of looking a little weird though, right? Because we're missing the donut hole. And then if you happen to have a little piece of star, this one doesn't. This one happened to be a solid navy blue piece. If you happen to have a little piece of star, which sometimes happens, try and line it up with its neighbor if it is there. Otherwise, just line it up so that the edges keep coming. So you have a nice even triangle. Try to make it look right. That looks pretty great, doesn't it? If you wanted to, you could even line this up. So I'm lining up one of the marked edges with the top of the A so I can get this nice and lined up. Beautiful. And then we press it back down. Make sure you come straight down when you press it so that you don't slide it over as you come down. We press it down. And voila, you have your letter. Now you just need to do this 6 more times. That was an extra, so here are all the pieces that I have made, and I've cut all the backings. Again, I just measured the rectangles and then trimmed them out. You can use the outside of the template. I would not bother putting this through the Cricut. It's so easy. Another thing that I've done is put the fabric out, and once I'm at this point, put this out, and I just line it up, and then I take a cutting edge and I put it down and I cut it right to this. So what we will do, this will go backwards, and they all get lined up like that. So we are now ready at this point to move on to sewing.